What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. This is Jon Does. This is episode 85. I'm not doing the director board today. I might have to not do that, actually. That might be a thing that I scrap. Although I really like it. So, welcome to Jon Does. The best way to support this channel, if you're new here, is to check out wilddinosaur.com. I have a website, and I have a store with all kinds of cool stuff. There's t-shirts, sweatshirts, tote bags, stickers, all kinds of stuff like that. So check out wilddinosaur.com. I'm going through this kind of fast today because I have a guest again. We're going to do these regularly for a while. Do at least a handful of episodes here. If you can't tell by the description of the video, we're talking about 90s nostalgia again. And I got Ryan back this week. Ryan, how you doing?
So far, so good, man.
Fantastic. I understand. Well, I think both of us, we're both in California at various ends of California.
Yeah.
And we're both experiencing what they call a I forget.
An atmospheric river.
That's the term, an atmospheric river. How is it up there? Is it torrential downpour, or is it just a steady rain?
It started picking up around sunset. I wouldn't call it torrential.
Okay. Heavy-ish?
But it's steady, and
Okay.
it's heavy.
Okay.
And that wind is gusted.
That is...
Gale force.
Gale force winds?
I think my wife is prone to exaggerating. No. All right. That's the official verbiage.
Okay.
That is the word. Gale force.
Well, I'm glad you guys
Two
haven't
words,
blown away
actually.
yet. You've glued yourselves down, so nobody is flying away. That's great. It is wet here as well. It's been a consistent moisture. It's not been heavy by any means. Maybe for Southern California, because like the second there's moisture in the air at all, people just forget how to. I would say, actually, you know, I take that back. Southern Californians just don't know how to drive typically. Weather does not change the shittiness of how people drive around here. Anyways, we are here today because we're doing this series of stuff. We're doing this 90s nostalgia. And last week we talked about Space Hog, which is a fun one. This week we are talking about Bush's 16 Stone from late 94. Late December 1994 is when this record came out. Did you you got a chance to go back and listen to all this stuff? Yeah?
Yeah. Yeah, I did. Was there a question there?
I'm just...
Because I got questions.
Yeah.
Questions,
Go for
Johnny.
it. What's up? What's your questions? What are your questions? What is questions? What are questions in general? I don't know. Go for it.
Why Bush? Why Bush's 16 Stone?
Why?
What does that record mean to you? That under the topic of 90s nostalgia, that should come up. It comes up for a lot of people, for sure, man. These are popular songs we're discussing.
Yeah, that's actually kind of why. Last week we talked about a specific song, and I was thinking, do we do more specific songs, or do we, we can talk about a band, or we can talk about a full record. And I figured maybe talking about a record would be a fun conversation one. But I started thinking about it because the 94 to 96 is when this record was popular. And I was finding a little bit of musical influence in my life, and I was thinking, what other bands around this time was I listening to? I wasn't like a big music head, but I was taking stuff in from like my siblings and whatnot. It was like Rage Against the Machine and Bush were two bands that I kind of latched onto a bit. And the reason I didn't do a specific single from this instead, and choosing to do the record, is because there were a lot of really good songs off that record. I'm not saying there weren't on Resident Alien, but In the Meantime is pretty relevant to right now. Like it's kind of having its Kate Bush moment. And when I was thinking about doing another one, like this record came up in my head because it's for the longest time I always thought this was the best of the Bush records, because I'll be honest, I stopped listening to them after like the third record maybe. Never really consistent. There's a couple of singles I think here and there, but I attributed a lot of that time frame musically in my life to listening to a lot of the singles from Bush. There's a number of them that they sprawled out throughout the year of 95. And I initially started thinking about maybe just doing Machine Head, but then I was like, no, there's some other ones on there. So yeah, I guess that's kind of wise. It was the first real, like, when we were thinking about doing these segments, it was one of the first real ones that I was like, yeah, they're a really great band. And then at the same time, I had the same thought of, well, I haven't really revisited them in a while, particularly this record. And so I thought it was a good time to go back and check it out. So that's kind of why. There was a lot in there. Real quick, Pat says solid thumbnail. Thanks, Pat. Yeah, the thumbnail image is dumb. So yeah, what do you remember about Bush from this record, particularly 16 Stone, when it came out? What were you up to?
There was there was a Canadian radio station across the river in Windsor called 89X. And starting in 1991, they were a modern rock station. They went off the air in 2020. The first and last song was Stop by Jane's Addiction. As I say, this radio station was in Windsor. They played a lot of English music. And there was a lot of English music breaking into the mainstream, starting in the early 90s. Most of it dance, house stuff, stereo MCs, KLF, Shaman. We talk about this crap all of the time, you and I.
Yeah.
You know I love it. My source for that was 89X. Just before, I don't know, in the fall, they had debuted Love Spreads by, heaven help me, the band that everyone loves that I just don't get. Love Spreads was on Second Coming. And you were just into I Want to Be Adored, which is by
Space Hog.
Stone Roses.
Oh, Stone Roses. Sorry. Sorry. Yeah. That was a dumb call on my part. I was doing some things over here. Sorry, my bad. Yeah.
So 89X debuted
Stone
the
Roses.
Stone Roses Love Spreads and Bush, Everything's Zen, at about the same time. These were like sneak peeks. And I thought that the Stone Roses had the better song. And the Stone Roses was what I expected from English rock bands of the time, man. Everything Zen had elements that I liked. A lot of elements that I liked. I took that band seriously, man, but I didn't think they were so good. And the press kind of liked to hound them over the course of that year. So I remember it being very fashionable to bash that band. And usually the people doing so had very funny things to say. And for the most part, they were right.
Yeah. There's always the critical voices. They exist in every fan base.
Here's the thing. I didn't care for that song. I was told that's because I didn't like modern rock. And yeah, all my friends bought the record, and I wound up hearing it a lot on the radio, on CD. I respected that record, but at the same time, I knew that it wasn't for me, and I also knew that it was problematic in that it wasn't that good, man. I didn't think it was that good at the time.
Yeah.
That record dropped in December. Everything Zen was everywhere by January 28th. I think 89X had some discretion in what they chose to play off of that record.
Uh-huh.
But everyone else playing modern rock at the time just followed suit, and it got its way. I'm pretty sure it got its way onto the pop stations. The term alternative rock was a contentious one at the time.
Yeah.
All right. And yeah, when a band effortlessly slides from so-called alternative rock into like mainstream success, within the span of a few months, there's, questions are going to be asked. Did they really get lucky, or were they cunning? Are these
industry plants?
Or yeah.
Yeah.
See, the reason I gave Bush the hearing I did initially was because it was released on Interscope, which was a solid label.
Yeah.
And remains so, I think. I mean, it's whoever really owns it, I don't know.
Yeah.
Universal, probably. Universal or Columbia owns Interscope now. I don't know. But back in the day...
Yeah, it's Universal.
Okay. Back in the day, it said something. It was a major label, yeah, but they had a knack for picking up talent, and their catalog was pretty diverse. They did a lot of hip hop. They did a lot of that industrial crap. They did, gosh, they had their hands in so many pies. Yeah, and Bush was with them for a while. What
Are you in trouble? You in trouble over there?
No, I'm putting out some incense.
Oh, okay. Yeah, don't burn the house down. I mean, I guess with all the rain, you're in a solid position, but still, don't burn your house down. So yeah.
You have to.
Huh?
There it is. Beg your pardon. It was a big chunk of incense. Just smoldering.
Was it like one of those cones, incense cones?
More of a brick.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
More of a brick.
I haven't burned incense in a really long time, and I kind of miss it. Actually, I like the smell of Nag Champa.
I'm sorry. The thing about everything Zen, man, the instrumentation was a little bit interesting, but a little. I don't think it's entirely fair to compare them to Nirvana. I think those guys were competent enough musicians that, if they had wanted to, they could have done anything.
Yeah,
Nirvana had done.
They don't sound like Nirvana, but I see how they get like grouped into the that 90s grunge era. I mean, they are kind of grunge, but to me they fit more on. I always put them in the like alt rock category, and that's without like prejudice. It wasn't I didn't view alternative rock, the label alternative rock as a insult or anything like that, but that's kind of how I always saw them. Modern rock is not a bad term, the way I'd see it.
I took his lyrics seriously, and I admired his singing got to be a little theatrical.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was somewhere in the vicinity of his natural voice, and he certainly had it.
Yes.
He had a talent for showmanship and emoting. I guess he's done some acting.
Mm-hmm.
So his delivery is quantifiably good. The guy's a good singer. And at the time, oh, Lordy, at the time, would have turned 18 a few months prior, and I'd been reading the beats for about a year at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew everything about the beatniks at that time.
Yeah.
And I felt his appropriation of he was not trying to sell himself as a beatnik, but he cited them as an inspiration. And I thought that was just ridiculous.
I feel like that was maybe a thing of a lot of bands in the 90s. Maybe I'm just making this up, or maybe it's just something that
You're not. It was there. It was wonderful.
Well, a lot of the 90s.
I didn't like it. I didn't like it out of him for some reason.
Fair enough. I
being
feel
the
like,
heart. It's the heartthrob. I think.
Yeah.
Him being the heartthrob.
He was the pretty boy in flannel.
I was petty.
The pretty boy in flannel.
A petty, jealous turd.
Why am I still getting this?
But I paid attention
message?
to his lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
I paid attention to his lyrics. Undeniably, the arrangements, the compositions were all very well thought out. And I might not have, and I don't appreciate the bass tone, say, or much of the tones on that record, but I do marvel at the clarity. You can hear those fingers moving across the maple neck of that jazz bass.
Mm-hmm.
And the compression is just so perfect on it. I think there are points on that record where you can hear everything, and I did appreciate that dynamic.
sorry, I just want to go back to something real quick.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe I was a little too young, because I was 10 or 11 years old when this was popular. So this is why I'm still like kind of learning what music is at this point, or music that I like, discovering that a little bit more. It feels like today there's a big like 90s resurgence in fashion and some of the other like culturally relevant things, music, stuff like that. A lot of fashion for sure, and I feel like the 90s was the same kind of thing with the 70s. There was like a 70s throwback thing going on, which is why I think we got Woodstock 95. Was it 95? Woodstock 90. There was 99, of course. There was one before that too. Yeah, we started getting all these like 60s, 70s revivalist stuff going on too, which is why when you said they cited beatniks or like the beat era as big influence, I feel like every band was citing those influences at the time, because yeah, they were like just discovering. I feel like the 90s was like a rediscovery of tie-dye. They like forgot about it from the like 60s and 70s, and all of a sudden like one kid was like, dude, I found this weird shirt my mom had, you know, and then all of a sudden it was like flannels and tie-dye shirts and stuff like that. I might be completely off base, but it feels like there was a lot of that then, and so I don't know, like Gavin, I guess if it was Gavin Rossdale saying that, like Jack Kerouac and like that crew were influential at all. It to me that feels like, and maybe this is a little bit of that bias that you had back in the day too, is like, yeah, that's the pretty boy being like, well, everyone else is talking about Jack Kerouac, so maybe I should too. I mean, for sure, like those influences are like Ginsberg and
Well,
and all that are influential people for sure. But it just, to me, that's how the 90s kind of felt.
Gavin Rossdale talks up Allen Ginsberg a bit over the years. Look, I did not go all in researching our talk, but I read a few interviews with Gavin Rossdale over the years, and he seems like a pretty sincere guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I can take him at his word for a lot of things, even though and this going back to when 16 Stone was popular in the press. I mean, look, he was dating Courtney Love.
That's something I completely
for the better part
out
of the lifespan of this album. Okay.
Yeah.
And then this other, it wasn't a big, okay. Some of us cared about Boy George. Some of us liked Boy George.
Mm-hmm.
And Boy George came out and said that Gavin Rossdale had a boyfriend in the 80s, which highlighted the fact that he was a lot older than everyone else at the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And then by the way, he denied the accusations and then fessed up years later, like 15 years later. He's like, yeah, we were lovers. And the other dude was like a total sweetheart about it. It was kind of nice, but he would have been so much cooler if he had just owned that at the time. And I feel like if Allen Ginsberg really meant something to him, he would have owned that at the time. You know, that's what the cynic in me says.
Mm-hmm.
But he was trying to align himself with a powerful, or in my mind at the time, a powerful American literary tradition.
Yeah, sorry, I just looked it up. Gavin Rossdale was born in 1965, so that would have put him at like 30 when
Yeah.
when 16 seconds. That's something I didn't realize.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
Nothing. I mean, look, I was not at all ageist when I was a kid, nor am I now. However, that
I am to a degree.
Suspect. Because at that point, I was perfectly aware that they were deliberately marketing most of this music to kids.
Yeah.
You know, and I didn't think of myself as a child, but really, I was kind of in the same. I was 94. I had just turned 18. Okay, but I was really close to your demographic in a way that counts.
Yeah.
Okay, and I mean, faced with that, the younger me would just laugh at it. That 10-year-old you and 18-year-old me were supposed to enjoy the same art.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
I would not have stood for that at 18. I think it's wonderful now that a 10-year-old and an 18-year-old can at least appreciate in their own way the same kind of object.
Mm-hmm.
You know? I'll say one more thing about the writing to Everything's End.
Yeah.
It was their lead single, and it uses the word asshole in, like, the second line.
Yeah.
The guy refers to his asshole brother. I thought that was really, I don't know, Closer had come out the summer beforehand, okay?
Yeah.
Which is about as raunchy as it gets on mainstream radio.
Yeah.
MTV, other places would censor it. 89X let the asshole stand. They said asshole on the air for that song.
Hell yeah.
I thought that was kind of progress at the time. I thought that was progress.
Uncensored music. Well, there's a bunch of musicians that. Well, I guess it was a slightly different thing, but the whole what's Al Gore, Tipper Gore, the whole Mothers Against like music or whatever, satanic music or whatever, which united the like.
Well, don't confuse the Satanic Panic with. Oh gosh.
Well, sure. I guess that was like a decade before or more. Yeah.
Listen. You were asking me about kind of the spirit of the times.
Yeah.
I'd like to read a record review. We're not talking about other bands, but
Sure.
This is a good record review. It came out in February of 1994. All right?
All right.
I played hooky the next day or the day after that and went and bought this record. This is from Wired Magazine. It's Material, Hallucination Engine.
Okay.
It's brief. The guy says, not since Mingus has there been a bass player who has composed as much music in a lifetime as Bill Laswell, a master of both the electric bass and the recording studio as instrument. Laswell has built a small yet prolific empire at Axiom. Hallucination Engine is definitely the best Material album to date. Every continent is represented, and groove reigns supreme. House, jazz, funk, rock, dub, ambient, African, Indian, Middle Eastern, Chinese, all swing like mad. This is the real shit. Will Crest. That's what I expected from music, in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Everything else fell short. And when you have a band that's aping another band whose lead singer is barely cold in the ground and has an album charting, I felt they were regressive. I felt Bush was a step backward.
Mm-hmm.
And I was amazed they got as popular as they did. and that record was as popular for as long as it was. And it ran against everything I looked for in good music. Bush 16 Stone was not the real shit, man.
Yeah.
And I knew it.
It was compared to like some of the greatest rock of that era. It is a byproduct of a lot of the like great. It is a byproduct of that era and genre of music. But the things that they emulated, not the beat community, but the other like grunge bands, all of those bands are arguably a lot better. I like oh my gosh, why am I drawing a blank all of a sudden? Eddie Vedder, Pearl Jam. I like Pearl Jam. I mean, not like a huge fan or anything like that, but Pearl Jam's a much better band than Bush ever was.
Well,
I think they have a little bit more talented group behind them, and I mean Eddie Vedder alone has gone on to do some great stuff. Did you ever listen to the Into the Wild soundtrack that he did?
It's terrific.
Yeah, really good. I can't see Gavin Rossdale doing something like that. Maybe he has, and I just missed it. But
I wouldn't put it past him.
Sure.
Here's the thing with Gavin Rossdale, and here's the thing with why I was. Look, 16 Stone went 6 times platinum. April 16th, 1997. That's 6 million records he sold. Those people, they had their fans, and they delivered. And they kept those people who bought the record, those Bush fans.
People.
I detested them after a point, man. I mean, look, this was the scary thing. I started out listening to Bush in my parents' house. And then I move away to my freshman year at college. Okay?
Yeah.
And then I come home the next summer, and I'm like, damn, everybody is still listening to this damn Bush record. And then I get a job at a record store, which is something I had wanted.
Yeah.
For a while, man. I wanted a cool job.
Yeah.
And I got it. And I just sold Bush records all day. I was like, why won't you guys get over this damn band? And I think what is it? Razorback Suitcase must have came. Razorback Suitcase was out before 97. Razorback Suitcase was out probably October, November of 96.
Yeah, man. I think it's a 96 record.
Yeah. And the guy in interviews, he talks about this as he refers to this as his job. He's a songwriter. This is what he does. He's got the goods for them that are buying it, man. And I don't think they're wrong for loving it. I don't think it's bad music. I'd have sworn up and down back in '95 that it was, but it's not by a damn sight, dude.
Yeah, they were popular for me. I mean, again, I think I was on the younger end of who they were marketing this kind of stuff to, but I was still in that like demographic. And yeah, like they were really popular. And let's see, I had Oh yeah, I had a question for you. Since we're talking about like where we were and how we were feeling about it, when it came out, and you had maybe some more negative opinions about it because of where it stood culturally or whatever. And I was more like, oh, this is cool. This is really cool. I wasn't as critical at the time of like, well, all these other bands that are out there. I was just, absorbing stuff. I was just taking stuff in. So I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And there was always a couple of songs off of the record that I like listening to. But how do you feel about the record since we decided to do this and we've done the re-listen? Did any of it change in your mind or memory? Obviously there's maybe you feel differently about it than you did then in regards to like, oh, I like the music now, because I do that all the time. There's music I hated when I was a kid that I don't mind listening to now.
You know what blew me away when I listened to 16 Stone again?
What?
It was a surprise, and I loved it. I was listening to Glycerin.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm waiting for the drums to come in. And that was really cool. Those songs were annoying in their persistence, but they weren't bad songs. I mean, at the time I appreciated Glycerin for what it was, because it was subtle. It was a step back, and there were some bands that took that approach. There were some acts that took that approach, and the whole less is more vibe was coming into effect, and some people. Tori Amos was the big one for me.
Mm-hmm.
I saw her play piano. I can't remember. It was in Hill Auditorium. She might not have had a mic, man. She might have been there at the piano just belting it out for the whole auditorium.
Yeah.
One person, one piano, and the house was rocked thoroughly to its core. And Glycerin has that restraint going on for it, and it's still, it does have a groove, man. There are some grooves on 16 Stone. I have to believe that was the rhythm section.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, however much of a heartthrob he was.
Old Gavin Newsom. I mean, Rossdale. Damn it. Sorry.
He cared about his band.
Yeah.
In that he wanted them to sound good. I mean, they were tight, man. They were tight. They got along well. I know. I know for a fact. The rhythm section worked alongside him, putting the songs together.
Yeah.
Because those guys went on to do interviews for Modern Drummer and Modern Bassist and Modern Rock Drummer, Modern Rock Bassist, and they've got some tales to tell, I guess, about how they put some of this stuff together. But they'd been at it for a while.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned you didn't like the bass tone. What about that?
Fender jazz bass, maple neck, maybe some distortion every now and then.
Mm-hmm.
Seemed kind of okay. I don't want to step in anything here. There's a punk rock angle to that tone that I like. I kind of think of Mike Watt when I think of that tone when it's used well.
Okay.
Okay, and in the 90s, I think this has something to do with better, okay, for starters, better solid-state speakers and better recording equipment. You could get really crisp, high-definition bass sounds, and I think some studios or producers really pushed that. And I think, yeah, on Everything Zen, it's not quite as noticeable. I think that might actually be a distorted bass. And all bets are off when they're live. Okay?
Yeah, for sure. We're just talking about the record.
Mm-hmm. What is it? Oh, it's Come Down.
Mm-hmm.
You can hear it. You can just hear everything so well. I mean, that band did make use of space. There's silence in their songs, man, and that is really cool.
Yeah.
I prefer a more muted, toned down bass tone.
Gotcha.
Generally. I don't think that kind of definition on a bass really adds much to a recording. You know, hearing somebody's keys jangle in their pocket or a beer bottle fall over goes up further away than that.
I like to hear those things a little bit more on the guitar track. If fingers sliding along the strings, or like you're saying, keys in the pocket or whatever, those things work for me more in that realm.
I'll give some props to Mr. Nigel Pulsford, his lead guitarist, on that one, because over the years, Bush has responded differently to the comparison to them, between them and Nirvana. All right.
Yeah.
And at one point, it was kind of a good interview. He was saying, we really liked the Pixies, which I don't hear at all. But
you said the Pixies?
Well,
Yeah, I don't really hear that much either.
Well, so I said I don't hear that. I didn't hear that at all. But when I went back and listened again, Mr. Nigel Pulsford does some Joey Santiago kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I want to call it noisy guitar playing. Almost just sound effects and textures. They're all over the place. I mean, sometimes it's not quite so noisy. Sometimes it's high gain octaves. Other times, it's noise in the best sense of the word. Just some scrapes along the fretboard. Joey Santiago did that all the time. And it seems to show up a lot on 16 Stone. And I wonder if they were sitting around there like, hey, instead of just straight up ripping off Nirvana, let's pretend Nirvana had a lead guitarist. And that lead guitarist was Joey Santiago. They were like, great, let's do that. That's our sound. And that's Bush. I wonder if that went down. Because the lead guitar work, it's not solo driven so much, but it's there. That guy's busy. He's no slouch.
Yeah.
And by the sounds of it, Gavin wrote some really nice chord progressions, in my opinion. He came up with some cool riffs. This guy knew what to do to complement that.
Yeah. I was gonna talk about a couple of singles real quick, and I want to go back to the bass thing real quick. There's some bass tones. I focused more on the guitar, but there was some bass tones that I really liked. I'm a big At the Drive-In fan, and
sure.
The song "Come Down" has that bass that it starts off that do 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 do.
Yes.
It kind of reminds me. This is gonna sound crazy for some people who are into At the Drive-In, but it actually kind of sounded like, in my head, the DJ in my head was remixing that bass line into an At the Drive-In track, which is something that I like. But there, so that bass tone specifically on "Come Down" is great. But there's another thing too that they do with the guitars. It's I've never done it myself, because actually maybe I have. It's like a filtery, like a phasery, like metal scrape on the strings. And they do it a little bit in "Come Down" and I think "Monkey." The track "Monkey," I think they do it in there too.
Yeah.
But I think it very reminiscent of some stuff I remember hearing At the Drive-In do. On was it Relationship with Command, I think. No, actually earlier stuff.
A lot of acts that I was into were into the maple neck jazz bass through like an Ampeg or a Heart Key.
Yeah.
Aggressive EQ. Bands Trans Am did that. I had friends that were into that sound. There were groups on 16 Stone where there just weren't any in a lot of similar modern rock.
Yeah.
So I did appreciate that. The drumming didn't suck.
You know, the other thing you brought up was chord progressions and Little Things. Oh, is that Little Things? Yeah, there was one song that I it's still a song that I really like too, but I think actually no, it's "Come Down." The verse part to it, I feel like grooves really well, and then it kind of, not that it doesn't go heavy for the chorus, but I feel like if I was writing that, I probably would have done a different chord change. I don't know.
Are you talking about like that sort of major lift?
Yeah. When it's like kind of groovy but dark, and then it brings up. And I don't know if that was necessarily a sought after choice when writing the song, or if it was just like something that came about. But yeah, it feels like that song could have been a little bit more, and I hate to say this in this terms, but it could have been a little bit more brooding. And I think they would have worked a little better, but
they were roundly accused of being as brooding as it was. You know, the difference between Bush being sad and 9 Inch Nails being pissed off.
Mm-hmm.
I found that I didn't like either, ultimately. You know? But I would have considered myself a 9 Inch Nails fan up until about the time, yeah, totally, about the time 16 Stone came out. Oh! 9 Inch Nails dropped further down the spiral the following spring, which was a great remix project.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the rock I was into at the time was, incorporated electronic elements somehow. And that Bush didn't have that was like strike one against them, you know?
Yeah.
That they were so conventional and familiar sounding in terms of like, you know, the 4-piece being just a rock quartet from England. Cool. You know?
Yeah.
That's not what they were selling at the time.
Well, we have just a handful of minutes left. Let's get into let's finish up with talking about some of the standout tracks that we like, because it sounds like you like this a little bit more than you did, when it came out, or in that time period. Not to say that you love this record.
I think it's fair to say I was ambivalent for the most part when
Sure.
it came out, but it did overstay its welcome ultimately.
I won't disagree with that at all.
Yeah, by the summer of '96, I was done with it, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the
over.
winter of 2023.
Yeah.
What
I was digging the most, man, I think it's the greatest song he ever wrote. It's called Heavy is the Ocean, and I think it came out maybe a year or two ago. But New Bush is awesome. Here's the thing, man. You thought Bush was cool when you were 10, and you were right, man. I hate to admit it, but they've stood the test of time.
Interesting. That's
And
interesting.
I might have had a reserved respect for him or his tastes in poetry back in the day. But I listened to this song, ready to hate on it, man. And I thoroughly enjoyed it, man. I've listened to that song about 3 times in the past 24 hours. Heavy is the Ocean by Bush. Kicks ass.
I'll have to check it out, because I didn't go, in doing this, I kind of purposely didn't go any farther than 16 Stone. And like I said before, when I was younger, I definitely listened to like Razorblade Suitcase. I had that on cassette. And the one after that, I can picture the album cover, but I don't remember what it was called. The Science of Things, that one. But I haven't
1999.
but I haven't really listened to anything of theirs, and I know they got back together after, like, was it 2010 or something like that? They like broke up for a little bit.
I went back and listened to Golden State.
Okay.
And you should check that out. I actually thought that was a step in the right direction. That was a sunnier record.
Okay.
Out of the gate.
Yeah, maybe I will. I mean, it's called Golden State. Sounds like it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's cool.
Dude, he does a lot of interviews. He did a podcast with the hardcore humanism guys about dealing with judgment and criticism.
Mm-hmm.
He seems like he's got a cooking show coming out.
Yes.
The guy likes to eat.
He doesn't look like it. He's skinny as shit. He's a twig.
I mean, I guess it started with me just making sure like none of them were, it's 23, man.
Yeah.
You got to make sure like none of them are rapists.
Yeah.
Or
dead
whatever,
or rapist or, anything. Things have gone on. You never know what's gone on over the last, 30 years.
He had a pretty big interview with American Songwriter about 10 years ago, and he was emphasizing how he practices his instrument and he practices piano.
Mm-hmm.
Went on at length about that, and I just he got his hooks into me. I read the whole interview. I went and found out a little about him now, right? And
yeah.
Apart from again, just joyous surprise of rediscovering that glycerin had no drums.
That song's more grating to me now than it used to be. It's unfortunate. It is unfortunate, but I do still think there's a bunch of great songs on here. Like, I do like Everything Zen, Little Things Come Down, Machine Head, and Monkeys. Probably another one that I used to really like that one when I was a kid.
It was kind of weird when Machine Head came out, man, because I was a big fan of cyberpunk things at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And like, oh, I don't know, there was like Strange Days in the fall, and then that spring, I think Ghost in the Shell came out, and like Ghost in the Shell and Machine Head were probably within a month of each other, you know?
Yeah.
And it was just a coincidence, you know, but I was hearing it a lot, overhearing it a lot, I should say. And, yeah, I was just thinking to myself, is this his comment on the fusion of humanity with technology? It's a cyberpunk song.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in the form of actually, that's a little more up-tempo than what you find on the rest of that record. Their last single.
Yeah. So let's wrap this up because we got a couple minutes here. So you like this record a little bit more? Is this something that you'll revisit again anytime soon? Okay.
No.
Has your Bush phase officially ended?
I think it's enough that I've been reminded of this. You know, I'll have my notes. Well, and there's what makes it an affirming experience, man, is that I don't think Gavin Rossdale is the opportunistic hack scumbag I might have thought he was in the fall of 1995, let's say.
Well, that's good. I mean,
my opinion of him has improved considerably. And I can't wait to watch his cooking show.
You know, I think that's probably the best. The next thing that I'll probably absorb from him as well is probably his cooking show. But look, I think that was
check out Heavy as the Ocean. It's probably better than the cooking show.
Okay, I'll check that out too. But hey, look, that was a really fun episode talking about Bush. We've got some other ones cooking up for following
How
weeks.
far over did we go?
Oh, it's 7:00 right on the dot. Right.
Beautiful.
Now. So
well,
I'll
peace out, man.
I'll let you go, Ryan. Thanks for joining me. We'll be back. You'll be back with me next week. But yeah,
Looking forward to it.
Thanks again for all your thoughts on Bush.
Thanks for having me on, John.
All right, I'll talk to you later.
Good night.
Good night. All right, so that was it. That was our discussion on Bush. Ryan's not on the phone anymore, so I'm going to take that graphic down. Here's the pop this up once. Here's the album cover, 16 Stone. Go give it a listen and let me know what you think. Were you a fan of Bush when it came out? Were you too young? Were you not even alive? Have you checked out Bush now? Have you thought about any of this? If you're young and you don't know who Bush is, the lead singer was married to Gwen Stefani for a long time. They have children. Anywho, I'm going to get out of here now. But before I go, don't forget to check out, don't forget to check out wilddinosaur.com. It's the best place to support this channel. There's stuff there to buy. I have t-shirts, sweatshirts, and gas. It's not coming out yet. Anyways, wilddinosaur.com has t-shirts, sweatshirts, tote bags, socks, stickers, all kinds of fun stuff. I'm trying to work on some new designs to get up there too. The other thing is, don't forget to check the description because I think it's really important to donate to Planned Parenthood. So there's a link in the description if you feel like doing that because they do a lot of great stuff. And I've been watching C-SPAN all day. Because this is the most exciting C-SPAN's ever been. So I'm going to get out of here. I'll be back on Friday. I don't really know what my show's about yet on Friday. Maybe we'll talk about some entertainment news. Maybe we'll talk about some other shows that have happened, because the Bad Batch just dropped their first 2 episodes, and Willow is ongoing. So maybe we'll get some thoughts about that. Maybe if Pat's around and wants to come on, he can come on too. But we'll check back with him. Anyways, I hope you guys had a good Wednesday and enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It's the new year, and I'm at 49 subscribers, and I would really like to round that up to 50. So if we can get one subscriber, just one, this is going to be the battle of the century. Jon Does getting 1 subscriber. By the end of the year, I would like, it's been a slow go for me, but by the end of the year, I'd like to get to 100. That would be awesome. But for now, I'll take 50, and we're just 1 away from 50. I'm at 49 subscribers. I'm surprised that 49 people care enough. But anyways, I love you guys. And I will see you. What day is it? Today's Wednesday. Yeah. I'll see you on Friday. So, yeah, I'll, have a good Thursday, and, don't do anything I wouldn't do, which is,